Jessica Miller, a 29-year-old American tourist, and Sheikh Khalid Al-Rahman, a powerful 47-year-old Dubai elite, seemed like an unlikely pair, but their secret love affair, fueled by passion and shadowed by lies, spiraled into a deadly confrontation that shocked the world. In the summer of 2022, the city of Dubai shimmered under its golden skyline, a place where luxury and ambition seemed to collide at every corner. Among the glittering lights, towering skyscrapers, and lavish hotels, one man stood out in particular: Sheikh Khalid Al-Rahman, a 47-year-old with immense wealth and influence, known for his extravagant lifestyle and deep connections within the city's elite. He was both admired and envied. To outsiders, Khalid was untouchable, a man who had everything anyone could ever want: power, money, and status. Yet, despite the world of comfort that surrounded him, he carried a sense of restlessness, a hunger for something different than what his routine offered. It was during one of his late-night visits to a luxury rooftop bar that fate intervened. Jessica Miller, a 29-year-old tourist from Los Angeles, had arrived in Dubai only a few days earlier. She came seeking escape from a life that felt stagnant and uninspiring, craving the adventure and sparkle that only a city like Dubai could provide. Unlike Khalid, she had no wealth, no prestige, only a desire to experience something larger than life. Her presence was noticeable not because of her status but because of her energy. She moved with a confidence that drew eyes without her ever trying. The encounter was almost accidental. Jessica had wandered toward the bar's edge, captivated by the endless sea of lights below, when Khalid noticed her. To him, she was unlike the polished women of his social circle, who were accustomed to wealth and influence. She seemed raw, unfiltered, and untouched by the world he lived in. For Jessica, Khalid was the embodiment of the luxury she had only ever seen from afar. The tailored suit, the quiet authority in his manner, and the whispers that seemed to follow him wherever he went all painted a picture of someone larger than life. What began as a fleeting moment soon turned into an exchange of glances, and before long, a conversation. The connection was instant, surprising both of them. Khalid was intrigued by her openness, her lack of fear in speaking her mind. Jessica was drawn to the mystery behind his carefully crafted presence, the aura of a man who seemed to control everything but still carried an undercurrent of loneliness. That night marked the beginning of something neither expected. What was supposed to be a casual encounter in one of Dubai's most glamorous settings became the spark of a secret relationship that would soon spiral far beyond either of their imaginations. The city, with all its beauty and promise, had unknowingly set the stage for a story that would end in darkness. Their meeting quickly evolved into something far more dangerous than either had intended. Within days, the Sheikh arranged private encounters, careful to avoid the eyes of his inner circle and the ever-watchful public. Dubai was a city of appearances, where reputation meant everything, and Khalid could not afford even a whisper of scandal. Yet Jessica's presence drew him back repeatedly. She was unpredictable, lively, and a sharp contrast to the polished perfection of the women in his world. Every time they met, he felt himself pulled further from the rigid structure of his life, into a space where he could shed the weight of responsibility and indulge in reckless passion. Jessica, on the other hand, saw the affair as more than a fleeting distraction. For her, every meeting was proof that she was moving closer to a life she had never imagined she could have. The expensive gifts, the opulent hotel suites, the exclusive restaurant, each moment confirmed her belief that she was no longer an ordinary tourist passing through. She began to envision herself not as an outsider, but as someone destined to belong in Khalid's glittering world. What she did not see was the fragile nature of the bond they had built. The Sheikh's wealth allowed him to control the narrative, but Jessica was not easily controlled. She pushed for more time together, for something real beyond the confines of secrecy. He resisted, knowing the cost of exposure. For Khalid, this was a hidden indulgence, a dangerous escape that could never be acknowledged publicly. His family and position demanded silence, and he thought Jessica would understand, but her emotions only grew deeper. Each refusal from him chipped away at her patience and fueled her determination to demand a place in his life. As weeks turned into months, their meetings grew riskier. He began canceling plans, citing obligations, while she grew suspicious of every excuse. Tension crept into what had once been thrilling encounters. Their dynamic shifted. No longer the carefree lovers sneaking moments away from the world. They became two people locked in a battle of expectations. To Jessica, the secrecy felt suffocating. To Khalid, it was the only way to survive. Beneath the glittering lights of Dubai, their secret affair was slowly turning into a storm neither could escape. The passion that had drawn them together was now laced with unease, as if both sensed that the affair was destined to reach a point of no return. The fragile balance between them collapsed the moment Jessica discovered she was pregnant. What had once been a thrilling secret suddenly became a lie, altering reality. For her, the test she held in her hands was not just proof of a child, but the key to everything she had hoped for. She imagined a future secured by the Sheikh's power and wealth, a family that would tie her permanently to his world. In her mind, this was not a complication, but a blessing, a chance to transform herself from a temporary guest in his life into someone permanent. For Khalid, the news was a nightmare. A child born outside of marriage carried enormous consequences in his world. The reputation he had built for decades, the respect of his peers, and the trust of his family all stood at risk of shattering. His name was more than just personal pride. It was a symbol of authority and tradition in Dubai, and scandal could tarnish it forever. To him, the pregnancy was not a new beginning but a threat that could undo everything he had worked for. The gulf between their perspectives widened instantly. Jessica pressed him for acknowledgement, convinced that his resistance was only temporary. She imagined he would come around once the initial shock passed. Instead, his responses grew colder. He began urging her to consider ending the pregnancy, insisting that it was the only solution to protect them both. What he framed as practicality felt to Jessica like betrayal. She refused, determined to carry the child regardless of his wishes. To her, this was about more than love. It was about survival, about finally securing her place in a world that had always felt beyond reach. The arguments grew more heated, filled with accusations and ultimatums. Jessica felt cornered, abandoned by the man she had trusted to change her life. Khalid felt trapped, desperate to keep his secret from surfacing. Behind closed doors, their affair no longer resembled the passionate escape it had once been. The tension was suffocating, each encounter more volatile than the last. The pregnancy transformed their relationship into a battlefield. It was no longer about desire or affection, but control and desperation. Every word exchanged carried the weight of two opposing futures, hers, built on hope for permanence, and his, defined by fear of disgrace. Both were convinced they were fighting for survival, and neither was willing to back down. What had begun as passion was now a ticking time bomb, ready to explode with devastating consequences. The night of November 2022 was supposed to bring resolution, but instead it sealed their fate. The Sheikh had arranged for a private meeting at one of Dubai's most exclusive hotels, choosing a suite high above the city where no prying eyes could follow. For him, this was a final attempt to end what had spiraled out of control. He wanted closure, an end to the tension, and above all, a way to make the problem disappear. Jessica arrived with her own expectations, believing that this would be the moment he finally accepted her pregnancy and the future she envisioned. Both entered the room carrying hope for control, but neither realized how dangerously combustible their emotions had become. The evening began with sharp words, each sentence cutting deeper than the last. He accused her of recklessness, of trying to trap him in a scandal that would ruin his life. She accused him of cowardice, of hiding behind his reputation while ignoring the reality of the child they had created together. The argument escalated quickly, voices rising and echoing against the walls of the lavish suite. What had once been whispered secrets of affection was now replaced with shouts of anger and desperation. For Khalid, the pressure was overwhelming. The thought of exposure, of headlines carrying his name alongside words like affair and pregnancy, filled him with dread. For Jessica, the weight was personal. She had sacrificed everything for this relationship, only to feel discarded when she needed him most. The clash of their fears and desires created a storm that neither could control. In the chaos of the moment, Jessica's emotions boiled over. Investigators later pieced together that she moved toward the minibar, where in her frenzy she grabbed a sharp corkscrew. What began as another wave of heated accusations erupted into violence. The sheikh, caught off guard, had no time to defend himself. Within minutes, the man who had lived a life of power and privilege was lying motionless on the floor, his empire of wealth and influence unable to protect him in his final moments. Shock consumed her almost instantly. Jessica stood frozen, staring at the irreversible outcome of her rage. Panic quickly followed as she tried to think of a way out, wiping surfaces and attempting to stage the scene. But the hotel's corridors were filled with cameras, and staff had already noticed unusual activity in the suite. By morning, the illusion of secrecy had crumbled. What had once been their hidden affair was now exposed in the most brutal way imaginable. The discovery of Sheikh Khalid Al-Rahman's death sent shockwaves through Dubai before the sun had even risen. News spread quickly among the hotel staff, and within hours the story reached the city's elite. A man of such prominence could not vanish quietly. Authorities moved swiftly, sealing off the luxurious suite and piecing together the evidence that would unravel the mystery. Forensic teams combed through the room, noting signs of struggle and the weapon that had been used in the fatal attack. Hotel cameras provided crucial footage of Jessica entering and leaving the suite that night, ensuring the investigation had little doubt about the sequence of events. Jessica was arrested before she could leave the city. The confident tourist who had once walked into Dubai with dreams of adventure now sat in a stark interrogation room, facing a reality she could no longer escape. The scandal that followed was immediate and explosive. International headlines painted the story as one of passion, betrayal, and tragedy. Some portrayed Jessica as a manipulative outsider who had destroyed the life of a respected leader, while others cast her as a desperate woman abandoned by the man who had promised her the world. The truth lay somewhere in between, but public opinion was rarely patient enough for nuance. The Sheikh's family worked tirelessly to protect his reputation. Statements released to the press framed him as a victim of circumstance, avoiding any mention of the affair or the pregnancy dispute that had led to his death. Behind closed doors, however, the family's outrage was fierce. They pushed for the harshest penalties, determined to ensure that justice was served quickly and decisively. Jessica's trial became one of the most closely followed cases in Dubai, drawing international journalists and endless speculation about what had really happened in that hotel suite. In court, the details emerged piece by piece. Evidence of expensive gifts, secret rendezvous, and the emotional tug-of-war between the couple painted a picture of a relationship built on secrecy and doomed from the start. Jessica's claims of being abandoned and pressured clashed with the prosecution's portrayal of a woman driven by obsession and rage. Every revelation kept audiences gripped, each twist reinforcing the tragedy of how two people's choices had spiraled into a nightmare. The verdict was inevitable. Jessica was convicted, her life forever tied to a crime she could neither undo nor escape. The Sheikh's death became a cautionary tale whispered in both Dubai's elite circles and beyond, reminder of how quickly desire, secrets, and desperation can collide, leaving nothing but ruin in their wake.